Hey everybody, I'm David Black, and today I want to talk to you guys about the first time I ever dealt with anxiety and depression. I was 11 years old the first time that this happened to me, and I have to tell you that 2 years before this, I lost my sister, who was 2 years older than me, to cystic fibrosis, and that was a horribly sad event in itself. I know what a lot of you are thinking right now, like that's sadness, not depression, but 2 years later, this was something different. You know, we went through all that sadness. I spent definitely a fair share of time crying and saying, why me? Why did this have to happen to us? Why Jillian? There was definitely a large amount of sadness associated with that. But what happened on this particular day was not entirely related to that. It was not unrelated to that, but it was something different. I was 11 years old and I was playing Sega Genesis in my bedroom, and I remember just being washed over with this wave of like self-hatred. The things I was loathing about myself were all things that only an 11-year-old would feel. Like, I remember thinking like, I'm not the fastest runner, and I'm not strong enough, and like I'm not a good kid. Like, I get kicked out of class and I get sent to the principal's office, and I ran downstairs and was crying my eyes out, and I said to my mom, I'm so sorry. And you know, my mom and dad's first reaction was like, what do you mean you're sorry? Like, what did you do? I just kept crying and telling them like, I didn't do anything today, but I suck, and I'm sorry that I'm a bad kid and that I let you down. And they were like, what are you talking about? You don't let us down. And I was like, yeah, you know, I don't get the best grades, and I'm not a good hockey player, which was something that bothered me greatly at 11 years old. I get kicked out of class, and I don't clean my room, and you guys deserve better. And I remember even saying like, Jillian was a good kid. Like, she got good grades and was popular and everybody loved her. And I'm sorry I'm letting you down. And my parents, it's weird that I'm still so affected by it. Like, none of that stuff matters. And my parents told me, you know, you're not a bad kid, like you're a good kid, like stop being so hard on yourself. And I just kept crying and saying, yes, I am, and I'm sorry, you're just being nice. And they didn't know what to do. And eventually my dad just decided, you know what, let's go to a movie. That'll make everybody feel better. Let's go to a movie, because my parents looked genuinely concerned, like they wanted to cheer me up, and nothing was working. They took me to go see Ace Ventura: Pet Detective 2. Which is the other reason I distinctly remember being 11 years old, because that's when that movie came out. I cried the whole way to the movie theater, to the point where I think my parents were even starting to get a little bit annoyed on top of being concerned at this point. Like, all right, shut up, we get it, you're sad, you know? And when we got to the theaters, I was still in tears, and my mom came to me with like a huge bucket of candy and popcorn, which my mom never sprung for the popcorn at the theater because it's such a ripoff. But that time she got everything. And she's like, here you go, does this make you feel better, kind of thing? And I was like, no. And so they were more annoyed. The movie started, and I remember being sad throughout the whole beginning of the movie. And then I distinctly remember what scene it was that cheered me up. If you've seen the movie, you'll remember the scene when he's in the room with the priests of the village, and every time he says Chicago, they have to bow because that's their god. And he goes, Chicago, and they bow, and he's like, I tricked you, you're out.
Shikasha. Ah. Shish kebab. Shawshank Redemption. Chicago! You're out of there! Go on. You're gone. Go on.
I cracked up laughing in that moment, in spite of it, with tears in my eyes, like as sad as I was. What I learned from that experience at 11 years old was that I could distract myself from those feelings with comedy. And so I got really obsessed with TV shows like The Simpsons and, you know, Saturday morning cartoons, Ren and Stimpy, anything else that was on back then that 11-year-old me thought was hilarious. But that's what I would do. I would find things that I liked to keep me from paying attention to the rotten pit in my stomach. And I'm actually thankful to my parents for teaching me that, because it was certainly a coping mechanism. And it's hard to explain why I was so sad. Like, I know none of the things I mentioned are that bad, but I just really, really, for the first time in my life, hated myself. It was the first time I ever felt that way. In this moment, it was like every little thing about me was terrible. And I didn't love myself anymore. I carried that every day moving forward. I carried those feelings. Anyway, if there's anyone out there dealing with the same thing, you're not alone. Peace, everybody.